This podcast, The Good, The Bad and The Vagina, is brought to you by me, Tess Lovely, a retired midwife, birth keeper, mother and sovereign woman. The views shared are my own and those of my guests. If something doesn't resonate, release it. It's not meant to upset or offend. If you feel discomfort, please seek support for your own healing. If you don't like what you hear, don't listen. This space honours truth, freedom and expression, protected under the rights to free speech. Welcome to The Good, The Bad and The Vagina. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the very first episode, an introductory episode of The Good, The Bad and The Vagina. I'm Tess Lovely. I'm a retired midwife, a birth keeper, a doula, a woman and a mother who has been walking alongside and holding space in childbirth for many, many, many years. This podcast is a space for the truth to be told. It's for the beauty, for the messiness, for the magic of birth, pregnancy, womanhood, and everything in between. We'll talk about the good, so those moments where it's of love, strength, connection, those moments that take your breath away. And it's for the bad, for the trauma, for the silence, and for a system that's failed and let so many women down. And of course, it's about the vagina, because it's about time we talked openly and unapologetically about the part of us that brings forth life. It carries power and it deserves respect. So each episode, I will be sharing stories from women, from birth workers, and sometimes of my own. And those stories will be a challenge. Hopefully they will be healing, and hopefully they will inspire, because every birth, every woman and every journey matters. So whether you're a pregnant woman or you're a parent, you're a birth worker, or you're just someone who cares about the truth behind birth, welcome. This is where we're going to break the silence and reclaim our voices and remember that the power is within. Because behind every bump and behind every scar, there is a story to be told. And this is our time and opportunity for us to be talking our truths. So I'm very excited about where we're going on this journey together. Just why did I choose the name The Good, The Bad and The Vagina? Well, there are so many aspects about childbirth that are just brilliant. Our bodies are so amazing. We are so well designed to conceive a baby, grow a baby, birth a baby and parent a baby. We're now living in a climate where that seems to present with a whole load of challenges, and that's why the bad, we're going to be talking about the bad. We're going to talk about the challenges that childbirth brings. We're going to talk about the constraints that a medical system puts in place and how that inhibits our abilities to birth. We're going to talk about some really hard, raw, painful stories, but it will be done with love, kindness and respect. And then obviously we're going to be talking about the vagina, which is going to be you guys and your stories and what you want to bring to the table. And if you don't feel brave enough to come up and join me on a podcast, then you can always send me messages or tell me your story and I'll talk about your story for you on your behalf. This is about a celebration of us as women, as our vaginas, about speaking our truth and about empowerment and breaking silence, having a platform where people can freely talk about what has happened to them, because there are so many of us that carry around our story, unable to celebrate it or unable to release any of the shame attached to it. And this is what this is all about. I'm going to talk about how I became here. Here I am today. What's the story behind me bringing you here today? I am the only girl born into a family of 5 boys. Right from the onset, I was very misbalanced in that male-female energy. And sometimes that was an absolute godsend. And other times it's been a major hindrance along on my journey. I'm sure that's why I was born in that space of 5 boys. And interestingly, that I was born into a space of 5 boys and I chose the most female job in the world to go into, which was birthing and supporting women having babies. I then, lived my life, did my things, had experiences. And then I had my very first encounter completely in the birthing arena was when I was pregnant with my first child, Amber. So she was born in 1990, and back then, care provision was completely different. You had many more regular appointments with your midwife, and you knew her, you saw the same midwife throughout, and she also provided you with 6 weeks parent education classes, which were phenomenal because we learnt so much more about us being women having babies. Back in the 90s as well, the cesarean section rate was like minuscule, and everybody I knew had a normal delivery. And so you went into that birth arena with an expectation that you were going to have a nice normal birth. So I entered into the birth arena fairly confidently. I was at home for a long time of my labour, was coping, really confident, didn't have any issues or concerns, went into hospital. I don't think even home birth was an option to me then. I think there had been a massive swing towards hospital births. Anyway, I went in and I was examined and told that I was 7 centimetres. And I was like, oh my God. And she said, I'm just going to pop your waters. And I went, no, don't pop them. And that just completely changed the pathway of my birth at that moment. I felt violated. I felt powerless, felt out of control. So I went from being this very in control, confident young woman into feeling a little bit like a caged animal, really. Fortunately, because I was young and healthy and everything was okay, I birthed Amber pretty quickly after that. And then I went home. I couldn't get away from that place quick enough after that. And I loved becoming a mum. It was just incredible. The breastfeeding, those moments, the watching them grow. Like I'd cooked this baby inside me and now it was outside of me and I was still able to facilitate the growth of this baby. It was incredible. And I was blessed because Amber was a really, really easy baby. She was gifted to me into motherhood, and having her as a first experience was just a blessing. When I became pregnant with my second child, I went for my 12-week scan and I was told that I had some cysts on my ovary. So I was like, oh, okay. I was informed that I was going to be monitored a lot more regularly during my pregnancy. So I accepted that. I went along for more regular appointments with the consultant and scans and things. And then when I got to about 28 weeks, I went in for an appointment and he said, we're going to have to operate today. This cyst has spread. Didn't think anything of it. Anyway, I had this massive operation. I spent a week in hospital recovering. And then on my discharge day, the registrar came to discharge me and he said, we've made an appointment for you at oncology. And I was like, oncology? Why do I need to go to oncology? My mum goes to oncology. She's having chemotherapy for cancer. Why have I got to go? And he went, oh, yeah, you've got ovarian cancer. Now, I was young, I was on my own, I'd been given this piece of information, and to be fair, it was overwhelming, and I didn't really think too much of it, and I just parked it. I don't even think I told anybody. I think because my mum was quite poorly, I just kind of went, okay. Anyway, the one thing I did kind of know when I went for my first oncology appointment was that I wasn't going to have chemotherapy whilst I was pregnant. I knew that there was this voice inside of me saying, don't do that, don't do that. And that's because I could see what it was doing to my mum. And I certainly wasn't going to subject a baby inside of me to that. There was no way that was going to happen. I did get called some interesting names by the health professionals, like you're mad, you're crazy, you're going to leave your children without a mother. But there was just something for me that felt that that was exactly the right thing to do. I said I'd have it afterwards, but I certainly wasn't going to have it whilst I was pregnant. Then when I gave birth to Jasmine, which was a really beautiful, easy birth, by the way, it was amazing. Despite all this medical stuff, I'm really, it was an incredible experience. I didn't even feel any pain when I had her. After I'd given birth to her, I said I wanted to just breastfeed for at least a few weeks, 6 weeks. And in that time, my mum had completed a course of treatment and said that she wanted to go home to see her mum in Ireland. So I said that I'd take her. So off we totter onto this little adventure, me, my mum and the 2 babies. And on our way home, we go into a bookshop, and this book just was jumped out at me. It was like just there. So I went over and picked it up, and I got it out. And it was one of those moments in your life where it's a pivotal moment where your life is going down one thing and then suddenly it retakes another course. And the book was called Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Own Life. And literally, that's exactly what I did. It was reading that book that I firmly made up my mind that I wasn't going to have chemotherapy at all, ever. It just wasn't going to be something that I was going to do. So I did a lot of reading and research around it, and I did a lot of healing. And I think that in our lives, we have these real moments of like pivotalness where something happens and we just kind of go, pff. I believe that childbirth, every time you have a baby, it sends women into a new trajectory of pathway of where they thought they were going to go, and then they end up going somewhere else. That moment was one of those moments for me. So again, I declined having any further treatments of any sort at all, and yeah, I just felt really empowered. And then unexpectedly, I fell pregnant with my 3rd child, and I again went and booked my pregnancy, and the midwife said, what are you going to do? Because the obstetricians are going to want to be caring for you. And I said, I don't want to be involved in any of that. And she said, okay, just do what feels right for you. And do you know what? It has been my midwife, Julia Bennett. I have the utmost respect for that woman, because it was her who kept saying time and time and time again to me, do what feels right for you. She said it with Jasmine and she said it with Louis, do what feels right for you. Anyway, I didn't do any medical and obstetrical stuff, and I went into labour with Louis and birthed him at home. And then Julia and I just had this profound, intimate moment after Louis was born. He weighed 9.7 pounds. It was just an amazing experience. And she's just really quietly said to me, are you with your mum? And I was. Honestly, I was in this moment of sheer bliss where I had connected with my mum, and she just said, you're doing all the right stuff, keep doing what you're doing. But for her to notice that and acknowledge that, and it was at that moment, that was the moment that I decided I was going to become a midwife, because Julia had given birth back to me. So I wanted to help women receive the birth and give birth back to them and hold that sacred space with them. So that was it. That was my story. I then went on an adventure to become a midwife. I qualified. I have had some amazing experiences as a midwife. When I did my training, we're supposed to have 40 births before we qualify. Well, I exceeded that. I just had this gift where I could go in, hold space with women, so that they feel confident and safe and are able to step into their power and birth their babies beautifully. My training was incredible. My experiences in my early part of my career were just so wonderful. So I qualified as an E grade, which we did then. I worked in a hospital. I worked in the labour ward. I then got a promotion to an F grade. And then after my F grade, I became a G grade. I went out as a community midwife. I had the most wonderful, amazing, beautiful home births, where women, we didn't make our decision about where we were going to have a baby back then. We just made the decision when we were in labour. Do you want to stay here or do you want to go into hospital? And we did something called domino care, where you went to the woman in her house, and if she then decided that she wanted to stay there, you stayed with her and she had a beautiful home birth. And if she felt that hospital was going to be the safest place for her, you went with her into hospital and you supported her having a baby in hospital. And it was incredible. It was the perfect way to provide maternity care. During that that process of me working as a community midwife and loving all of that time and space, changes started to come in. We got a new head of midwifery, and she decided that she wasn't going to be offering this service anymore. And that was such a shame. So at that point, I decided that I was going to leave and I was going to become an independent midwife. So I did. So I left the NHS for a bit. Well, I didn't leave the NHS for a bit. What I did is I cut down my hours and I went to work as a Sure Start midwife because I still wanted to be available to those that couldn't afford me, whereas independent midwifery meant that people were paying me for my service. And it was amazing. And I did that for a good few years. I then fell pregnant with my fourth child, which is Honey. And I felt at that time, as I was starting a new family, that actually going full-time back into the NHS was the right thing for me to do in terms of stability and things. So I went back into the hospital full-time and became a labour ward coordinator. And Honey was born. It was really interesting doing the journey of birth and pregnancy when you are a midwife. That was so different from when I wasn't. Obviously, I was that much older as well. I was 40 when I had Honey. So that's quite a significant difference. There was a big gap of like 13 years from my youngest to having Honey. People just assume that you knew everything, but when you become pregnant as a midwife, actually you are just a pregnant woman and your brain goes to mush like it does just like any other pregnant woman. So I had Honey, and then I had Rio when I was 45. And again, Rio was just another amazing experience. And he was born at home. He was 11 pounds. It was just these beautiful, beautiful experiences. But the most important integral part of that is that my midwife, Julia Bennett, was there and present for me, for my babies, and even for Rio. And then, because Julia and I worked at the same hospital, and I met some incredible other midwives like Marge, and Marge supported me having Honey and Rio as well. We worked alongside each other quite a lot. When my eldest daughter, Amber, was having her baby, her last baby, she birthed her at home, but she was staying at her dad's at the time, who was renovating. She was renovating her. So this is the house that Louis was born in. So at one point, when Julia and I were there supporting Amber having her baby, we were in the house where I had birthed Louis, and it was just incredible, this moment. And these are the things that I'm going to be bringing to the podcast, just how incredible these things happen and unfold. I then had Rio. I was still a labour coordinator, loving my job, really loving it. But there has been a big change in the last sort of 7 or 8 years within the face of maternity. And I decided that I needed a complete change, and I moved to South Devon to become a team leader down here. So I came down here expecting to implement and help support knowing your own midwife and continuity carer. But the kiboshes were put on that fairly fast. And as we know, COVID came, and that completely changed the face of all care. In fact, the way we actually construct our lives. I have found being within the system then really, really challenging. And the fact that when I started my career, the caesarean section rate was about 7%, I think it was, when I started my career, and it's now 50%. And out of the 50% that aren't having caesarean sections, I reckon 75% end up with an assisted delivery. That's not because women are unable to birth their babies. That's because fear has been brought into an arena and decisions are being made on fear. And so as a result of that, I felt it wasn't congruent to who I was and my belief system about giving birth back to women working in this really toxic environment. So I've left the NHS, retired as a midwife, and I'm now providing a birthing service to women where I'll be your birth keeper or doula, if that's the name that you prefer. I provide education classes, support groups, and just generally want to empower women to really connect and birth in here. And so I founded Birth From Within. And then this podcast has come out as a result of all of those things that I'm doing. And this is where I am on my pathway at the moment. That's how I got here today. As I said, my journey has been absolutely phenomenal. I've had some extreme highs where I've just come away and felt there aren't words to describe some of the moments and experiences that I've had. They've just been so overwhelming and so phenomenal. And then I've had such lows which have left me heartbroken and in tatters as a human, really, as a human being. So, and they will all come out, all these stories will. I will just go through one of the small stories that I had quite early in my career. I hadn't long been qualified, and there was a woman who had had quite a challenging night, and when I came on, the coordinator said, "Can you go into that room?" I went to work early and she said, "Can you go in there and relieve that midwife because she's had a really dreadful night?" So I said yes. So I went into the room. The atmosphere in the room was palpable. It was cold and frosty, and it just wasn't warm and welcoming. And on the bed was this small Bangladeshi lady who looked petrified. It made my heart really reach out. I can feel my heart now recalling the story. I get so emotional about these sorts of things. And the story was that she had had an arranged marriage, had fallen pregnant, came over from Bangladesh, was living with his family, didn't speak any English, quite isolated. She had come in spontaneous labour, but when her waters had broken, there was thick meconium. The CTG, the monitoring that they put on the baby, was abnormal. She was declining, going for a caesarean section. There were big communication issues. Back then, we never had interpreters that you could call 24/7. So the midwife was communicating through the dad to her. She was saying no to everything that they were suggesting. So the plan was that when the morning staff came on, that they were going to then again reassess the situation, try and see if they could get an interpreter in to get her to go for a caesarean section. And if not, they were going to consider sectioning her under the Mental Health Act, which I thought was a little bit extreme at the time. I remember thinking, no, we don't need to go down this pathway. Anyway, at one point during the night, when the woman had declined going in for a caesarean section, the auntie had slapped her round the face. You can imagine that scene, can't you? It was just horrendous. Anyway, the midwife went off, probably to cry and, reflect over a whole night, and probably felt shattered and had she done enough, and a whole load of other things that we do as midwives. And I said to the dad, I thought that it would be really important for them to go and get some rest and get some breakfast, and that when the doctors then came in to the room at around 9:30, everybody would be in a better place energetically to sort of move forward, which they agreed. So the auntie and the dad went off and had their food, and I just sat with this woman. She, bless her, she was so young and so frightened, and so I went up and I just stroked her hair. I hummed, because she didn't understand English. There was no point me speaking. So I just hummed and held her. And after a little while, she kind of warmed and sort of moved around a bit. And I moved with her, and we were just like gently swaying and humming. I mimicked breathing with her and got her to breathe in a rhythm with me, just so that I could get more oxygen to baby. And in the process of her trusting me and relaxing and getting the breathing going with her contractions, the CTG actually improved a little bit. It was amazing. So I was feeling a little bit happier already, and we were just at one with this moment. And then I went and sat down on the rocking horse, on the rocking chair. We were just sitting there, and she came and sat with me, and then she sat on me, and I was still humming and stroking her hair and just making her feel safe. And then all of a sudden, she just made that noise of when you're about to birth a baby. If you're a health worker, you know what that noise is. It's like a deep groan. And I was like, she can't possibly be birthing this baby. I mean, she's been stuck at 5 centimetres all night. But she did. She literally birthed her baby while she was sitting on me. She just kind of pulled up her caftan thing that she had on. She gave a few more grunts and then just lifted this baby up onto her. It was, honestly, it was the most, there are no words to describe that moment. The baby cried. It was incredible. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment and birth. After a little while, I managed to get her over to the bed, kind of cleaned her up. The placenta came out. I left her with the baby on skin to skin. Then I cut the cord, and Yeah, there aren't any words. I can't really describe the moment because there aren't enough words to describe exactly how it all felt. But then I left the room when the whole team were outside just before 9:30. They looked at me and they went, "What's going on?" I went, "Oh, she's had the baby." And what? I went, "Yeah, baby's fine, centre's fine, all is well. Honestly, everything is fine." And everybody was just totally shocked. The sad thing about that whole birth was that the dad and the auntie had missed the birth, but maybe that was what the universe needed for that moment to happen. And that's a story that I carry dear into my heart. And every time when I'm in a birthing arena, it's that energy that I hold, that space that I hold, because it's not about me. It's not about anything to do with me. This is their birth. Birth belongs to women. And that's what this podcast is hoping to raise, that awareness that it belongs to women, and birth keepers, midwives, partners, husbands, aunties, whoever is in that birth arena, our job is to hold a loving space sacredly for the women to be able to step into their power and birth their babies, knowing that you're there to catch them, because that's all we can do is catch them. Things, when they look at us and go, "This doesn't feel right," then we take the action that we need to take. So that was just a little story that I wanted to share with you. I will be sharing some further incredible journeys along the way, but I just wanted you to understand the sort of things that I'll be bringing into the podcast. So I'm very excited about how this journey is going to unfold. I'm so thankful and grateful for any of you that are coming to listen and to join me, message me and to comment. I can't thank you enough. Your support is going to be incredible and integral for this journey to continue. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. So I'm either on as Tess Lovely or Birth From Within 1. Please join me. If you want to subscribe to my podcast, please do. There will also be a little place if you want to buy me a cup of coffee. That would be gratefully and humbly received. I will look forward to the continued journey. So until next time, I look forward to seeing you again. Remember, your body holds a story. Your voice holds the power. So let's start talking and let's start speaking the truth around the birth. Big love.